Good? Everybody good? All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. This is the August 5th, 2025 regular meeting of the Olentangy Local School District Board of Education. I'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Dr. Dabrico?
Here.
Ms. Schreiber?
Here.
Mr. Lester?
Here.
Dr. Wallach?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here. All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda.
No.
If not, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
All right, on to the board president's report. So I have a relatively brief report tonight. First of all, I want to welcome everybody here. It's the last school board meeting before the school year starts, so we're very, very excited about that. Lots of good energy in the district right now, and really appreciate the work of everybody in this room to make the school year successful as we head right into it. I know my kids are very excited to be heading back here in a couple of weeks. So. At our last board meeting, it was a special meeting a couple of weeks ago. We discussed that we talked about it, and then the board ultimately voted to put a no new millage bond issue on the ballot for this fall. That issue, if approved, would allow the district to build a new high school and an elementary school without raising the individual tax rate for members of our community. We're going to be discussing that as we go further throughout the year. We have some more discussion tonight about it. We'll talk about it every board meeting. Really, what we want the community to understand is that if you have questions, come to us, right? Come to the webpage, get some more information, reach out if there's anything that you don't understand. We're going to be providing different aspects of that, and specifically tonight we're going to be voting on a resolution that will really formalize that idea of no new millage and what that means, and we'll talk about that more here in a few minutes. But we want the community to understand that this is something that we're trying to be as transparent about as we possibly can. We want to hear your questions. We want to be able to answer those, so please reach out to us. Another thing that I want to highlight that's on the agenda tonight is one of the things as a school district we have to do is be very responsive to laws as they are passed. There's a new law that I know people in our community are going to have very strong feelings about that deals with personal communication devices, cell phones, that sort of thing. We have to really look at that in the context of what our legal obligations are and update our policies accordingly. So Dr. Fetty will be presenting tonight on some updates to that policy that are going to be proposed for us to consider to then go out for first reading and for community feedback. But it's important to understand that this is something that we're really working within the confines of the law, and the impacts that are going to arise out of that are things that we're going to have to try to manage in the scope of our legal obligations. So that's pretty much it. I just want to set the stage a little bit for what we're doing tonight. I know that Dr. Wallach can maybe speak a little bit about, we have Olentangy Education Foundation has a fundraiser coming up.
Yeah, so in years past, I think we all enjoyed attending Olentangy at the Africa Center at the zoo. But the Olentangy Education Foundation is pivoting this year. If you're not familiar with the organization, that is the nonprofit that is raising money to award classroom grants to really allow educators in the district to go above and beyond to give amazing, really out-of-the-box thinking learning experiences for our students. So with that said, the fundraiser this year is a homecoming theme. This will be held on Saturday, October 11th at 6 p.m. at the Brookshire Event Center. If you're on social media, I have to say there's a dynamite promotional video featuring the one and only Mr. Snow Days Meyer. So you should definitely check that out. But tickets are available now. Additionally, another fun component to this is that OEF is taking nominations through the September 15th for homecoming court, if you will. So there will be a king and queen at this event. This is 21 and older, but I would strongly encourage everybody, if you're available to attend, that you should consider doing so, October 11th.
Great. The video is definitely something, so.
Something.
Dr.
It's-
Dr. Wallach also stars in that.
Was that, am I correct, or is that video MA plus?
It is something, so. But any other committee updates? I don't think we've had any since our last.
No, facilities did not meet in the meantime.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
And we will be hearing the policy
Right.
committee update later.
Right, that's
so.
right, that's right. Okay, good. Well, then we will head into our first presentation. We are always so excited to welcome Mr. Swazi, our Director of Safety, Security, and Preparedness, and Sheriff Balzer for coming in, and we are excited to hear about all the safety and security updates.
All right, thank you, folks. Good to see everyone. I'll have the sheriff come up after my short presentation. Before I begin today, Mr. Meyer started, we were at bus safety training today at Berlin High School, and he talked about relationships. And we enjoy such a profound relationship with the Sheriff's Department. And in talking with the sheriff, so I moved here 18 years ago from Washington, D.C., and he wasn't the sheriff then, he was a deputy U.S. Marshal. And I met now Sheriff Balzer back then, and he was on a task force with me and my former colleagues. And one of the first things I did before moving here from DC was I also started up a task force. So it's sort of in my blood, the working relationships we have with multiple agencies. And again, it just shows and it bolsters our cooperation not only with the Sheriff's Department, but the surrounding agencies as well. So to get a policy issue into the record, I have to say this annually. The board has authorized one or more persons, and that's currently me, to be armed within the schools operated by the board. So I had to, if I didn't say that, Dr. Fetty would hold me in policy contempt. I'm going to briefly just mention we have a few new SROs to our school resource officers, to our cadre this year. New starting here at Orange High School, as you can see on the screen, is Deputy Miller. Returning Deputy Mox, Peterson, and Palmer. Again, returning SROs, Deputy Leonard, Ritter, and Newman. And new to us this year is Deputy Kammerer, but he was a school resource officer in the Buckeye Valley School District. And we just recently were able to have Deputy Harrington join us and Deputy Vaughn. And Deputy Vaughn actually came to us from being a detective for several years, and you may recognize her. She was responsible for the Braden Marcus investigation over at Olentangy High School. And of course, sitting next to the sheriff is Sergeant Lee. We're fortunate that Sergeant Lee, because we have 10 school resource officers in Olentangy, Sergeant Lee is also responsible for Olentangy. And one of our former SROs is now Sergeant Siegel, and you might see him walking in the school hallways, but again, his primaries are Buckeye Valley, Big Walnut, and the Career Center. Again, kudos to the Sheriff's Department for not only their partnership, but the sheriff has really taken it upon himself to put significant resources from the county in the schools. I think he has like 17 of his deputies just assigned to the schools. A couple of weeks ago, we finished up, the Sheriff's Department did, they just used our facility, Safety Town, and we had quite a turnout. There's a photo of some of the SROs showing their more personable side, and the littles there with the fire department. It's always a great turnout, and I mean, we could probably run that all summer long in Olentangy. The wait list is pretty big, and for those of you that don't know, it's for like the incoming kindergartners, and they get exposure. Sometimes this is their first time riding a school bus, and of course the fire department's a big hit, and they get a little bit wet with the fire hose. Talk about some of the trainings we have done and continue to do. This is a busy time for us because right before the beginning of school, before the teachers come, we have the new staff active aggressor training that happened last week. And like I mentioned earlier, and I see Lori in the audience today, they did a fabulous job today at the bus safety training. You may see a few clips on the news today. We had a wonderful weather day, and they introduced a few different scenarios to help the bus drivers in different types of emergencies they may face. But that was well attended, and that was, again, a good collaborative effort between the fire department, the sheriff's department, and all the drivers and the trainings. We have next week our new intervention aides. We'll conduct active aggressor training with them. And just wanted to point out to you that we're continually collaborating with Alicia's team there, the Department of Wellness, not only with their TSIP, and I've done presentations in the past with our behavior threat assessments. I put this up there even though communications does a great job of every time there's something that goes on in the school district, we always refer to this document, and we, communication sends out to parents just as a reminder. These are just some of the protocols we've adopted several years ago, and I just point them out, that we hand them out to the parents. They're in every classroom, they're in every hallway, but if there's an incident or a purported theft, or not a threat, not theft, we utilize this language, and just to point out or to stress that secure one, that's the second one, we're pretty much in a secure all day long. Right after first bell, the building's exterior doors are locked, they remain locked. The only difference if we go into a secure is that we don't have staff or students outside the building. Most of the stuff we do, whether it's a medical emergency within the school, that would be under the hold. It's business as usual. So I just want to reiterate that. I mean, if there was, something of, significance, threat inside the building, that would be the middle one, the red, the lockdown. But all in all purposes, if we call one of those secures or holds, it's that communication piece is like, okay, we're in a medical hold. So trying to lower parents, anxiety as best we can. But I get it. I'm a parent too. I've, been in the district 18 years now, so I get it. Wanted to point out, go ahead, sir.
I want to point out on that is, when we do face when there are these types of incidents, obviously the communications team works really hard to try to get information out to folks. Inevitably, there's something on social media where people say, what's going on? Why is this? And again, as you said, we live in troubling times, and there can be a high level of concern. We just sort of ask for people's patience as we work through some of these issues. Sometimes it's a very minor issue. Sometimes there's something a little more significant. We are always working to try to communicate as effectively as possible, as quickly as possible. But there are times where sort of the rumors spreading on social media can do more harm than good. So.
Right, and it takes some time for us in the Sheriff's Department to fully vet those things out, and I'll use the word investigate, but it's just to find out more answers. But you're right, the social media runs at the speed of light. We can't get ahead of that train, but we do multiple forms of communication and try to get the messaging out this time of year, at the beginning of the school year, every time there is something. And again, I think the more people see this document and hear those words, hopefully they're like, okay, let's take a pause, take a deep breath, and they know what they're doing. But I get it. It's tough as a parent.
I think your point of this document is really important too, because I think some of us, even, and like parents even younger than me, they only know the term lockdown.
I know.
So everything they think is a lockdown.
Right.
But this really differentiates that there are different reasons and different things that you do for different situations. So, my kid was in a school last year that there was a few different medical holds throughout
Sure.
the year because things just happen with kids sometimes during the day. And the social media rumors, oh, they went on lockdown.
Right.
Like, no, it wasn't lockdown, it was a hold. And it just takes time, I think, to educate and like you said, learn the difference between these. So I appreciate, as a parent, like seeing this and knowing when I get a message from my kid's school that says there's a hold, okay, it was probably a medical issue or something that's, I'm not going to worry about it that much unless I get a call directly from the school saying it's my kid who's being.
Sure,
you know.
absolutely.
Well,
And
and-
with 24,000 plus students, as you know, and 3,000 plus staff, I mean, we are a small city, so things, if you will, are bound to happen.
Yeah,
Dr.
I was just
Wallach.
going to say too, chiming in with all of this and reiterating your point about how great of a job communications does with getting information out there, that is the information that we are able to share.
Correct.
So whether it's protocols that are in place that we can't share because that would undermine the effectiveness of the safety strategy, or whether it's the protecting, the anonymity of a child who's had a seizure or something, the information that can be shared is shared when it's ready to be shared. But to ask the community to also understand that just because your child is in the building doesn't mean you get to know every single specific detail about an event. So.
Well, and to be clear, that need for information is subordinated to the safety of the situation.
Correct.
And you're going to not want to, I'm just guessing, not give out, you're not going to run to Facebook before you make sure the scene
I don't
is
have
the where it's
Facebook,
supposed to be, right?
Right.
And also, it's as hard as it may be for, never in a million years you go into teaching think you're going to practice with kids how to protect themselves from an armed intruder. It's horrific to even think about that, but a lot of times it's not, we have a lawnmower backfire and then we've got to close the building down and make sure what it was. So the hold is probably a whole bunch more frequent than the horrible things
Correct.
as you go down.
Correct. And again, we do that if there's a situation. Now, again, if a student bumps their head and they go in the nurse's office, we're not calling for a medical hold. That's something a little bit more out in the open. Let's just hypothetically say if someone is like having a seizure in the hallway. The only reason we call that is because we don't want classes to change. It's still business as usual in the classroom, and the sooner at the building level we make that determination, then the medical professionals can come in, and we're very fortunate, again, with all the responding agencies, they are there fast. And again, they assess the medical situation. If the student can be transported and looked at in the nurse's office, they do that, or if they have to exit the building, we want to give the professionals some time to do their work, and again, business as usual. And again, just the more we refer to this document, I think people get a little bit more comfortable. They're all great questions, thank you. And then I was just going to tout a little bit of our fiscal responsibility. I know we've got a levy coming up, but since coming on board in 2018, these are the grants that I was able to be fortunate enough to receive. So as you see, the bottom line, we're at like 2.2. And we also work hand in hand with the facilities department to offset some necessary costs that we're going to incur anyways as our buildings continue to age. In this past year, these are some of the things that we utilized the latest grant for. And like that item number 2, I mean, that's a big ticket item that, was almost chewed up the whole grant. And we also, remember, we upgraded the phones in 23 with that big grant. So at this point in time, I'd like to, if you have any more questions of me, or I'd like to bring up Sheriff Balzer. He's a lot better speaker than me. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Balzer, and I'm fortunate to be your sheriff, and thanks for inviting me tonight. With me tonight is, as Director Swazi said, is Sergeant Andrew Lee. Sergeant Lee has been with the Sheriff's Office in law enforcement for 15 years, and he supervises the 10 SROs that are assigned to Olentangy. Like Director Swazi said, we've got one of the largest school resource officers units in the state, and that's because the community sees that as a priority. We've got 17 deputies in the schools every day and 2 sergeants assigned to that unit. And you may recall, a year or 2 ago, we updated the contract. Just it's time to renew the contract. And we asked our partners, we'd like you to share part of the cost because I've got 2 extra sergeants I want to put on because we need to supervise the folks to give them support. Sergeant Lee is one of the folks who does a great job with the Olentangy SROs. Not only his supervisor, but you'll see him in the schools too. You'll see him in the schools. He's done a great job at the sheriff's office, and I know he will in this position too. I want to thank you again for inviting me tonight because I want to talk about the importance of school safety. If you think about it, the most important thing for any of us in our community is our children. And Olentangy Schools is consistently ranked among the best schools anywhere. And we're just honored to be part of that team that helps out to make that a safe and secure learning environment so that all the great people at Olentangy can do their jobs. They can educate the children, and we're going to keep it safe in there. We talked about partnerships. This is something I'm all about. The partnerships start not just with the schools, but with the parents. The parents have to trust us. They have to trust having us in the schools. And then we also have to have the trust from the administration that we're behaving properly, that we're adding to the educational experience for the students, and also the Board of Commissioners, because that's where I get my funding from. Without the Board of Commissioners, I wouldn't be able to do this. 19 extra people dedicated to school safety, and I thank the commissioners all the time. Some of the other things we do in partnership is we work with the other law enforcement agencies and other emergency responders. Specifically, we started a training this year called Rescue Task Force. Law enforcement officers have trained for quite a while on what to do, God forbid, in an active shooter scenario. It's kind of second nature to us now. Our firefighters, our medics, they know what to do to save people, but we needed to bring that together. The problem was in some incidents in the past in different parts of the country, the protocol was that the medics and the firefighters weren't allowed to come into an active shooter situation until law enforcement said it was safe. Sometimes that is a long time before we make sure that there's no more people there's no more devices, anything like that. There's a different model now. In the model now, we bring those folks into a warm zone. A hot zone is if there's active fire or something like this going on, active aggressor right there. If we can, what we're going to do is we're going to bring the medics and emergency personnel in if it's a warm zone. So there may be something else going on in another part of the building, but what we do is we assign 2 or 3 or 4 law enforcement officers to a group of about 8 medics to take them in there and protect them. We started this training. This is a big deal for Delaware County. It's kind of being rolled out across the country, but I think we're one of the first ones. We started that this spring, and I wanted to go through the first session. So I was there all day. I went through the training because I said, I'm going to sell this. So I want to see it. So I looked around and I saw these folks, and I've been to a lot of trainings throughout my career. And I saw the firefighters and the medics and the law enforcement officers. A lot of times, if there's downtime, people were talking about anything other than the training. Not this one. Everybody was so focused. We practiced in a former school building, and we went in, we did different scenarios. When we got done with the scenarios, the group would get back together. How could we have done better? And this is a continuing effort that we're going to do, not just this year, because every year we have new deputies, police officers, troopers, and medics and firefighters. So this is going to be continuous. We're going to do this from now on. It's a great relationship. I also want to thank you for allowing us to start that positive relationship with law enforcement officers. Joe showed some slides from Safety Town. Safety Town is one of my favorite things during the year. I tell the parents, I get to speak to the parents for about 5 minutes during the graduation for Safety Town. And part of it is it's an enjoyable event, seeing the kids there, the excitement and everything else. But it's establishing that positive relationship that the kids know that if there's an emergency, if there's danger, they can go to someone who's got a badge or star or shield, and they're going to help them. And that continues here. A lot of times, the kids are going to see their SROs that they see in school. So this is a great way to start out that relationship. So thank you again. Again, I'm all about partnerships and teams. I think we have a great team. I think I've selected the best people for the SROs, we've selected the best people for the SROs. That's one of the best parts too. The schools are always involved. They sit on the panel right with us when we pick them out. Some of the new to you SROs this year, as Joe pointed out, are experienced deputies, and I love that. I love that. They've got experience on the road. They've got experience in the detective bureau, different areas, and now they're ready to come into the schools. I think they're going to be great additions to the team. So again, thank you for all your partnership, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for?
Just a comment. It's, every teacher starts the year talking about safety before you talk about curriculum and everything else that we do. So just thank you to your team for standing in the breach, because when we send our kids to school, I feel safe. I feel like my son's at a safe place to learn. My daughter's at a safe place. They know who to go to if there's a concern. It's a great relationship. It's not just in the schools. When we go to events, when we go see one of our great athletic teams, safety, and it's a great feeling. It's a great reassuring presence that everything's going to be fine. And high school sports has gone a little sideways in the past couple years, as has all sports, honestly. But we haven't experienced that yet, and that's because you guys are there, and it's a presence. And just thank you for standing in the breach and for what you do. It's really appreciated, and thank you.
It's our honor. It really is. I tell people, and thank you for that we're not some occupying force that comes in. We're part of the community. We're just the ones that stepped up for this mission.
I don't take any of this for granted one bit. Mr. Swazi's years of experience and the knowledge he brings to our organization, the relationships across this community, the relationship with the Sheriff's Office, I don't take it for granted one little bit. There have been several times recently where I've been in the company of other school board members from across the state, and you hear their stories. You a school district that is arming their teachers, a school district that they're talking about Alice as though it's something new, and I'm sitting there kind of like looking around, and so I don't take it's easy to take this for granted, because this is the standard that has been set here in Olentangy, and this is what we as parents and as faculty, everyone comes to expect, this level of care and attention to detail to the safety of our students, of our staff, and that's just not the case everywhere else. And so I'm very appreciative. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. I was on the phone today with another sheriff from the southern part of the state, and we got talking about school resource officers, and he was just kind of amazed at what we did. And like I said, different communities have different priorities. Ours is school safety. That's our thing up in Delaware County.
Well, and I mean, you hit on this a little bit in your presentation, but it's one thing to provide safety. It's another thing for students to feel comfortable with that safety, right? And we've all had our kids come home from Alice drills and be freaked out, right? And it's a much different time than when we were all going through school, and there's that feeling of not being secure at times, right? Not knowing what's going to happen. When you have people that are trusted, that you see every day, and that have the skills to talk to kids effectively, that's not a skill that everyone has, right? To be able to build that positive relationship so that they know if they see that person, they feel safe. That is a testament to the work that is done on a personal level, right? On a real personal level, to build those relationships so that students not just feel safe, but they feel comfortable, they feel secure. That's vitally important, and it really speaks to the type of organization that you're running. It speaks to the work that Mr. Swazi is doing, and to the work of every single one of these folks that we see here, that they have that commitment, and that it really translates to how our students feel. So that, more than anything else, is just so impressive to me. I hear all the time from parents, this deputy is like our kid's favorite person, and they love that person. That's great, right? You want to have those relationships. So truly, thank you for fostering that spirit.
Thank you. The most important mission I have is to hire the right people, right? I think we all have that. You hire the right people, you give them the tools to do the job, and they excel.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to Sheriff Balzer for the partnership that the Sheriff's Office has with the schools. I know there are many times off hours, we will contact the Sheriff's Department, Sergeant Lee for sure, and have conversations about things that happen after school throughout the night, and they're on it. And we're assessing the situation and taking care of that. You know, and one thing you had mentioned, Sheriff Balzer, about the after-action review. And with every incident that we have in the district, we always do an after-action review to see, obviously, things that went well or where there might be some gaps in how we can improve if the same situation happened next time. So, you know, it just takes the commitment from a lot of people in the organization to do that. So, for sure, appreciate and so grateful for the partnerships. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you again for inviting me tonight, too.
Thank you.
All right, we are now moving to the superintendent's report. Mr. Meyer.
All right, you know what time of the year it is, right? The beginning of school. Once August hits, it's like go time for us. But I do want to say this, right after graduation happens, which it happens in May, we start preparing for the next school year. And there's a lot of work that goes on in between graduation and the start of the school year. So I want to recognize this year, so in preparation for the 25-26 school year, so we hosted 3 professional learning experiences for administrators, teachers, and staff. The Administrator Kickoff, New Teacher Academy, and Elevate. And every year this just gets a little better. And I just talked about after-action review, and they're already doing it. The team's already doing it from what happened last week on how we can tweak some things from next year, or for next year. So nearly 300 Olentangy staff members, you can see that, including 136 new staff and administrators. And that new staff represents related services, ESC folks, administrators, and certified staff. Joined us over the course of 4 days for unique learning. So it's really how intentional we are in onboarding new employees to Olentangy and really immersing them in the learning culture. And every single person to the left of me had a lot to do with that, and extremely proud. And we ask people this too. Extremely proud, obviously, to represent Olentangy as the superintendent, but these individuals are so good at what they do, and I want to thank all of them for providing those experiences over the last week and this week, and then even going into next week as we start the school year. So thank you all. Also want to highlight, this is a part of Elevate Conference. Our school leadership team kicked off, this is year 2 now, the district's mentor-mentee program. So one thing that we talked about a couple years ago in our leadership development and was missing in the district, to pair new administrators, whether they're new to the district or in a new role, with existing administrators. And the school leadership team does a really, really good job of trying to be purposeful on making that match. So we're providing support for, again, whether they're new to the district or in a new role, and continuing to foster collaboration and the support that we provide in the district. Also, you may have seen on social media, we've been highlighting 41 incredible staff members throughout the summer, so both teachers from each school and staff from specialized departments. So these teachers were nominated by their staff as Teacher of the Year in the building, or from departments as Employees of the Year. So you're going to have to wait just another little over a week. So on August 19th, we will unveil this year our Certified Employee of the Year, Classified Employee of the Year, and for the first time, Administrator of the Year. So that will happen at convocation on the 19th. So as Mr. Lester mentioned in his board president's report, the board voted to proceed for a bond issue on the November ballot. So I wanted to spend some time really on the why first, and then Mr. Jenkins in the treasurer's report will talk about the no new millage. But I really want to come back to the why, because for us it's a straightforward issue. We have grown and continue to grow. So this is the facilities report from last October. And you can see I highlighted 25, 26. So again, this year, going and just got the forecasted enrollment, we are right on target from what was projected from the facilities committee members last October to start the school year. We're right on target, and this happens year over year over year. So they do a really good job, and again, the facilities committee consists of community members who serve on that committee, and then update our projected enrollment every year. So I wanted to highlight that. And then we talked at the special meeting a couple weeks ago. You can see historical, the last 10 years there in yellow, the 24-25 school year, which we just finished, and then obviously moving forward. And we talk a lot about what's happened in the last 10 years with nearly 5,000 students growth in the district, and then obviously what's going to happen in the next 10 years projected. So it almost mirrors exactly the last 10 years with over 5,000 students projected to grow at our different levels. And I looked at the different levels, and so we're projected in preschool about 129 students growth over the next 10 years. K-5, 2,400, over 2,400. 6 through 8 over 1,200, and 9 through 12 over 1,600. And again, we talked about this, and you can see it goes to 34, 35, but I misspoke at the last board meeting, so I want to make sure we reiterate. Right now, our projections, we think we're going to level out in 2042, or around a little over 32,000 students in the district.
Say that number again, Mr. Meyer.
2042, a little over 32,000 in the district, and that'll level out in 2042. So obviously, again, every year we update those projections, and the committee will be here in October to update the board this year. So that's what's projected from looking from last year. Again, 2042 at 32,000 students. So as we stand today at the elementary level, because again, the board voted to proceed for high school 5 and elementary 18. And again, we're paring back from the 24 asked to immediate short-term need of 2 buildings. So at the elementary level, you can see where our pressure points currently exist. And so we looked at elementary utilization, again, with a capacity of 625 students in elementary, per elementary. And again, we have some of the largest elementaries in the area and across the state. So you can see the elementary utilization all the way up through 34, 35. And then the 2 elementary schools will soon surpass 900 students. So when we talk about pressure points, there's a big challenge there at Indian Springs over the next couple of years, and Liberty Tree over the next couple of years. And as the board knows and community knows, we've added 4 trailer classrooms at Indian Springs last year, and we'll continue to use those this year, and may have to add next year leading up to hopefully we're successful, and then we can construct elementary 18, so leading up to 27, 28. And then Liberty Tree, they're in the same boat there. However, we don't have trailers at Liberty Tree, but we do utilize 6 additional classrooms there, because when we construct a middle school and then put an elementary on the same campus, we do 6 connector classrooms between the middle school and elementary. So Liberty Tree is using all 6 of those classrooms, which is equivalent to a trailer. So again, you can see the...
Sir, just a question on this. You're highlighting Indian Springs and Liberty Tree as being, like, very soon there'll be over 900 students each. We've got 17 elementary schools. Should those be the elementary schools where the parents should really be worried, or is this a district-wide issue?
It's a district-wide issue, because you can see as the projected enrollment, the elementary utilization continues to climb. And again, we're going to address a short-term need, but we're still going to have to look at this in the future as far as utilization in our buildings.
Does a new elementary help only those 2 schools or every school in the district?
Yeah, so we'll go through redistricting, and that'll be at the time we'll redistrict. So when you say every, so I'll say yes, because it definitely will help relieve overcrowding here. And so, like an example, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, Cheshire was over 800 students. we opened Peach Blow Crossing. So obviously it relieved the central part of our district. And we also did a pocket redistrict out of Cider Ridge to Tyler Run. So there's some things that we'll have to do. So I'm going to say district-wide because we're always looking at how we're going to balance enrollments that make sense into our feeder patterns. And that's really important with how intentional our redistricting committee is and how thoughtful they are when assigning attendance boundaries, because we look at feeder patterns from elementary to what middle school to feed into the high school, and that's been a really good model for us because it helps with our alignment, it helps geographically, it helps with neighborhood schools, so there's a lot of positives to that.
Before you go on to the next slide with
Yeah.
the elementary, are you receiving a overwhelming amount of communication from parents of elementary students volunteering to do their classrooms in trailers?
No. And then high school, since we're talking about elementary and high school, again, high school pressure points, so capacity at 1,800, so you can see we're already over high school utilization. And then our pressure point is Berlin High School, so you can see plus 2,300 students in 28, 29, and that would be the year, if we're successful, that we would open High School 5. So for us, that would then relieve, by opening High School 5, the capacity or the student enrollments in our now four high schools, hopefully soon to be 5. But you can see it just exacerbates over the years at Berlin High School, plus 2,700, plus 3,100. So we would like to redistrict into a new high school, because if we don't, then we're going to have to redistrict. And this is going to be, we're going to have to redistrict out of that attendance boundary into our other 4 existing schools. So
When you say redistrict, do you mean just incoming freshmen or throughout the 4
yeah,
years?
if we're not successful, then we'll have to look at probably multiple grade levels. Yeah, absolutely.
And just to be clear here with the highlighting of these, right, it's not that we would wait to open these, it's just how long they take to build.
Correct.
So, part of the challenge with the longer you go with this, the further out it takes. You just can't make a high school in a year,
Right.
right? I mean, it's going to take longer. So as we see what this number looks like over time, it just gets worse and worse and worse the longer it goes.
Right. And it's 3 years to build a high school.
So kind of a similar question with this, even though there's a geographic point where High School 5 would be, is it only going to help Berlin, or does it help overcrowding at all the high schools?
It'll help overcrowding because, again, the 5th high school, then we're going to look at balancing enrollment at the 5 high schools. So it would help all of the high schools, because right now, based on 1,800 in capacity, three of 4 of our high schools are over capacity.
So this
we
would
have to
help
look at
everybody?
Everybody, yes. I don't remember, about a month ago, Dr. Fetty shared this, so tentative actions without new construction, and we've talked about this with the board. So we're looking right now tentatively 2,000 plus students redistricted, non-contiguous school boundaries, creating islands within boundaries to balance enrollment. And that is not what we want to do, because I just talked about our feeder patterns and how important they are to really the educational experience for our students. Trailers added to multiple schools over time and school enrollments exceeding capacity. So that's the challenge that we continue to face in the district. So with that, any additional questions?
I do want to highlight that when we talk about elementary schools with trailers, it's not that these are free. They
Correct.
come with a very significant cost. And so, there is, as we tell people with these issues, it's not our job to tell them how to vote. It's to give them the information. But part of that is providing full information. What it takes to be able to have a safe space for kids to learn, we can't just pack 50 kids into a classroom. We have to have alternative spaces, and those cost money. So that's going to be eating up additional, opportunities for all sorts of things that
Exactly
are
right.
funding, and they're, several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's no free, easy option here.
And we quantify that as sunken cost because we're not getting anything back from that, and it does take from the operational budget. And we've reported out to the board many times that we're extremely proud of the percentage of money that goes towards instruction in our school districts. Well, it's over 75%, which is one of the highest in the state. So, so you're absolutely right.
So in other words, after we pay for those trailers, there's nothing left? Like the value, like,
Yeah, we're leasing them, yes. There's the, right, exactly.
There's some stains on the asphalt.
right, right.
I don't think there's a marketplace for.
Yeah.
Because they're leased, it's not like we're
Leased.
buying trailers. and
Exactly.
The useful life, and we're not buying trailers, because the useful life, I forget, Mr. Gordon said at one point, it's a little bit less than a brick and mortar.
Yeah. Mr. Gordon, life of a
What's a trailer, 15 years or something like that, even if we did buy it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well maintained, maybe 20, but it's not a long-term investment.
Okay. So superintendent action items, certified and classified staff action items on the agenda this evening. And then from the Business Management Facilities Department, declare transportation impractical for students. So we've added some who have turned in their applications to the agenda. And then this time of year, recommend approval of transportation routes and stops. And our bus drivers today were in a good mood, weren't they? They were. Actually, it was a lot of energy over at Berlin High School this morning. So, so we're asking the board to approve transportation routes and stops, but also authorizing the Director of Transportation to make any changes to routes and stops as necessary as we get the school year going here. And then also asking the board to approve a resolution of intent not to provide career technical education in grades 7 and 8. And this is a standing board item that we do year over year because in the middle school, we do 6-week rotations with our family consumer science classes, so it doesn't meet the state hours. And I do want to point out, we do offer career technical education, CTE, in our high schools. Okay. And important dates, United Way Supplies for Scholars. This is always a great event just to watch the families come here and pick up supplies, so families in need. The United Way does a great job of going out and getting the supplies and then making sure that they're providing those to families for the start of school. So that'll be right here on August the 12th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Power School reopens. I'll say that maybe 3 times, Wednesday, August 13th. And we are ready technology-wise, right? We have enough bandwidth and everything. We are ready to go. It will not crash. Yes. First day for certified staff, they're back Friday, August 15th. Elementary and preschool open houses, Monday, August 18th. 2025 staff convocation will be August 19th at Berlin High School. And so we'll have 3 sessions, 7:30 a.m., 9 a.m., and 10:30 a.m. So all 5 board members are invited. Let Ms. Davis know if you plan on attending, and we will make sure that we introduce whoever's there at each convocation. And we're looking forward to, I mean, the last 2 years have been really good. So this year,
It's going to be great.
it's going to be great.
We'll have reserved seats for you too.
Yeah. And then, of course, Mr. Lester, as Mr. Lester said, kids, believe it or not, are excited for the first day of school, but I know parents are really excited, right? August 20th, Wednesday, August 20th, first day of school. And then our next regular Board of Education meeting will be right here, August 27th at 6:30 p.m. Wednesday, oh yeah, highlighted bold, Wednesday.
All right, good. Any questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer. Thank you. Mr. Jenkins, Treasurer's Report.
Good evening, board members. I also have a few slides to talk about, know the facts on the bond issue. What we're going to focus on this evening, because it is pairing up nicely with a resolution that we'll be considering as a Board of Education, is what exactly is meant by a no additional millage bond issue. I understand that there have been folks in various forums online, other questions, other places, who are trying to get their heads around what it is that we're saying about the bond issue when we say no additional mills. And so trying to take a deep enough dive to make sure that that is cemented in folks' minds with hopefully without going too deep. So unfortunately, there's a little bit of math that has to be involved. I tried to keep it as low level as possible. You know, school finance just has a lot of terms and jargon, so I tried to lay it out pretty clearly. But before we get to the blue box on the right, you know, we've always worked with our county auditor to have a reasonable carryover in our debt service fund, and that's about 6 months. And there's a really good reason for that. Our settlements come about 6 months apart, and defaulting on a debt payment is not a wise thing. So we always have to be sure that on top of making our existing debt payments, we have enough in reserves for unfortunate incidents. And I will liken all of these topics I'm going to go over tonight to a homeowner and their own mortgage. If you work with a mortgage escrow company, your mortgage escrow company doesn't just let you live month to month. You probably get once every year, and then when events happen, you'll get something that shows your escrow statement, and mortgage companies are almost certainly going to make you keep about 6 months in reserve to be sure that you can pay your escrowed items like property taxes, homeowners insurance, and other things. So it's a very common and very similar scenario that we have to be able to meet those obligations that come up each year to pay the principal and interest on our current finance debt that's paid for all of our schools to date. So on top of that reserve, we try to collect only what we need to pay that year's existing debt service. So you're shooting for revenue in equaling what you intend to spend that year for your debt service payments of principal and interest. We don't want to collect more than we need because this is money that would just essentially sit in our debt service fund and not be used because we can't take it, move it to operational and, you know, pay for things that are operational. If it's collected for debt service, it must stay in debt service. So we really want to be cognizant of the fact that if we don't need it, we don't collect it. So why is this bond issue called, and why can't it be called a no additional bond millage issue? And that's because with the current tax rate, we are going to be able to collect enough to pay our existing debt service. So right now for the 25 calendar year, we have about $33.9 million in principal and interest payments to pay off the investors who would have bought our securities so that we could raise the proceeds to build Peach Blow, to build Berlin, and to build, I got one more, Shale Meadows, because those are the three that we would have done since 2020. We also have, though, some buildings, you know, we would have built Berlin High School in 2016. And just like with a home mortgage, a lot of what we do when we finance buildings, we try to tie the financing to the useful life of the building. A building is around a 30 to 35 year accounting-wise investment, and so you try to target your debt service to last that lifetime. That's a more equitable distribution then of essentially what the useful life of the asset is to what our residents and taxpayers end up paying, and they get a use then out of that same asset for multiple years. So if the bond issue passes, we've already analyzed it, we would have in the very first year about a $9.5 million additional amount of debt service on that new financed amount of $235 million. We already know that what we're collecting, 6 mills, will pay for the $33.9 million and the additional $9.5 million. So while our property owners, our residents in our district, have to see language required by Ohio Revised Code, the Ohio Revised Code is going to look at that one issue totally in isolation, like it's the very first time we've ever had debt and there's nothing else existing in the district. So by law, it must calculate a tax rate, and in this case, it's 1.77 mils. But you can see that we've highlighted or accentuated, but our commitment and what we know is that we will not have to collect any of that 1.77 mils. So before I go to the next couple of slides, which show this in greater detail, now to the blue box. Fairly straightforward calculation if you just look at what's in parentheses and use the word tax rate. So you always take your mills and you divide by 1,000. So when someone says the word mill, I want everyone in here to just simply think 1/10 of a cent. 1/10 of 1 cent. You take 1/10 of 1 cent and you multiply by the total assessed property valuation, and then there's a final factor of a 12.5% discount because the state of Ohio picks up about 12.5% of every resident's tax bill. So an example at the bottom shows our projected calculations. 6 mills, divide that by 1,000, multiply by our forecasted 2025 value of just a shade under $7.2 billion. That will allow us to have a revenue stream of about $42.7 million, which, as you look at the two numbers on the left, will cover the 33.9 and the 9.5. We will not need additional mills. Questions before I go to the next two slides, which pull this apart a little bit more?
So part of the reason why that is because of the cost of constructing these buildings now. We're looking at what the cost is that we would have to be able to raise to do that. The longer we wait to construct, the higher it costs to do so, right?
That's correct.
So as we go further out, we can't make a prediction at this point because we don't know what those variables are. But as costs continue to rise, it becomes more and more difficult to do this, right?
That's correct. You got 2 or 3 variables. One of the variables is how much do you need? And when we say the word debt issue, as a homeowner, think a mortgage. You know, how much do you need to borrow from the bank in order to buy your home or build your home? School district is the same, only it's not a mortgage. We sell securities. We sell a piece of paper to an investor that we borrow money from for 15, 10, 20 years, depending on the length of the bond. And then we pay that investor back in interest over time, and then when it matures, they get their money back. So as the cost of building and construction goes up, that would drive up then how much you need to raise in proceeds, which absolutely impacts the financing. Absolutely. I continue to hearken to a mortgage. People who bought their homes in the height of the COVID pandemic were getting 2.5 to 2.125 interest rates. You're not going to get that now. And the other thing that's going to happen now is we know that the cost of homes between now and in the throes of COVID in the mid 2020s or in the middle of 2020. Those home values have also, and the cost of those homes have increased. It's the exact same concept.
And it becomes very hard to predict exactly how that's going to go, right? I mean, we've seen variability, and I know I haven't been on facilities in a couple of years, but even back then we were talking about some of the unpredictability in some of these markets, wood and steel and all of this sort of stuff. We're seeing a lot of volatility there now, right, on a national level. So all of this goes into it. I mean, it becomes a question of what are the risks of waiting versus the risks of doing it now, and I think people just have to understand that these risks are out there.
That's correct. That's absolutely right.
So can we go back to that slide for a second? Oh, we're still there. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. All
No,
right.
I went quick.
So the $7 billion number, that's the...
That is the valuation of all of the property in the district.
5 years ago, any idea what that number looked like?
About half that.
So in 5 years, it's almost doubled. What is it supposed to do in the next couple?
I don't have quite that aggressive of a growth factor, but about every 3 years, because the way property is assessed is in 3-year intervals. You have a complete reappraisal, 3 years later, you have a triennial update. 3 years after that, you have another complete reappraisal. And
Is it
so on.
only, does that only go up by reappraisals? What else can cause that to go up?
So what else can cause property values to go up are new properties that are constructed in the district,
Preferably commercial,
preferably commercial, absolutely.
like overwhelmingly preferably commercial.
The more commercial we get, the greater the relief in the tax burden for residential homeowners. That's correct. Can't stress
Say that
enough.
again.
The more commercial we get, the greater the relief for residential homeowners on their tax burden. You know, we work very, very hard with our local, fellow government entities to try to encourage as much as we can responsible development. And to us, responsible development is commercial and industrial. We love all of our kids. We'll educate anyone who legally comes into this district. But certainly we know that with, in the most cases, we know our data ties out pretty clearly. A new home that's constructed is almost certainly coming with a new kid.
So we're sideways on new homes, but we do great because I've never seen a child using a data center as a residence, correct?
That's correct.
And to be clear, it's not like we get a veto or a vote in zoning
No.
laws around here.
No. No, we don't. We've had conversations recently here as leadership team and other conversations we've had with, townships and cities. Even they know that an economic land use plan, at the end of the day, is a plan. What drives what happens with land is the zoning that an individual currently has on the property that they own. If somebody has 250 acres and it's zoned farm residential and they don't want to farm it anymore, one of the viable options is, as we all know, is to sell that land to somebody who may develop it. And although, and I'll try to say this carefully, because although we all want great schools, we also know that as we get more and more students, we understand that the cost of new buildings and education goes up. But we also know that we can't look at someone who has owned land and the best, highest use that they have for what's theirs would be to maybe sell to a developer. Put yourself in the shoes of that homeowner and picture someone telling you that you no longer have a right to take land that belongs to you and use it for its best, highest economic value. In fact, to interfere with that is to some extent unconstitutional.
But
And where
we can, by the same token, we can encourage, now we don't do this as a school district, but we can encourage our local governmental partners, townships, cities, anybody else who has any interest, they can encourage and do things to encourage commercial development, which we will laud them and encourage that as much as we can, because that commercial development equals property tax relief for our residents.
That's correct. Commercial development at its core, reason why it works is there's new construction, there's greater value to that construction and the underlying land, and there's generally not, as you mentioned, 52 kids living in that business. That is why in a home, we always have to do the analysis of new student versus the revenue for the new home. And we've done that analysis, and generally when we look at it, where a house has a student, we can be reasonably close to break even. Where a house has 2, 3, and 4 students, if you just think about the cost of educating a student versus the revenue that comes off of that home, that's where it doesn't necessarily keep pace.
So a quick advertisement for your website, which thank you for your hard work to make that available and pointing me to that. The website says everything you said in a readable fashion, and I don't know if it's possible to include it in a board report to link that, because I think it's important that this isn't a new revelation. This isn't something that we just decided this morning. It's always been our position we like commercial development and do everything we can to avoid stuff that costs us more than we can raise in revenue. Just one more quick question,
Sure.
not changing subjects. I saw on the Ohio Senate website, $14 billion has been passed out by the Ohio School Facilities, and they changed their name for the state. $14 billion, 9 zeros. How much has Olentangy been awarded by the state in their efforts to help us with our growth? 14 billion with 9 zeros. How much have we gotten from the state of Ohio for our new construction?
OFCC doles that money out based on perceived need. That perceived need boils down to the valuation of the district and an equity ranking. Our equity ranking is way, way low. Therefore, we have never received OFCC funding for new school facilities.
And we don't get to determine that ranking. That's done at the state level?
That's correct. That's
So,
right.
so the answer then is 0?
Correct. And then back to the original question, we have about moving forward at each of those 3-year blips of reappraisal, triennial update, about an 8 to 9, sometimes as high as 10% forecasted increase.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. I want to kind of get out ahead of something that I heard a lot and read a lot during our last levy ask, and that is a lot of our community members will say that the developers should be paying to build the new schools. And correct me if I'm wrong, the ORC does not allow for that even. Like it's not something we can ask. But also correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the land that we have at our disposal that we've utilized or have to utilize has been also donated by developers? Is
That's
that-
correct. Yeah, we talked about that at our last ballot issue, that I think we ran across, I want to say somewhere between 10 and 15 of our schools are on land that ultimately, if you go all the way back to the late 90s, that were donated so that the district, had a place to build. Now, some may argue, well, that's the least they could do.
Yeah.
Don't know. But no, there's no viable model that I'm aware of. At the end of the day, a developer, a home builder is a for-profit business. They just can't take it into their business model to construct, a $35 or $40 million school, or as a high school, $35 or $40 million would be an elementary, or $130 to $140 million high school.
It is just a matter of our powers as a school district that we just don't have the ability to force this.
No, we don't.
And there were a lot of questions, and I think they're good questions because sometimes the authority is kind of nebulous among cities and townships and the state and whatever. But these are just not things that we as a school district have really any authority to order at all.
No, none whatsoever.
By the same token, we can continue to preach the impact
Right.
that it has.
Sure.
And the positive benefit of commercial, and continue to develop partnerships with our township folks, et cetera, our township municipalities. I feel like I'm leaving, county,
County.
of course.
Yes.
Our county elected officials as well, so thanks for those clarifications.
And this is that time of year where we hold what are called tax incentive review councils. It was at 2 today with Delaware County to review the economic development agreements and other types of things to spur the economy, which come with, in some cases, abatements or other types of packages like that. Delaware County, for their what are called TIFs that are in Orange Township, those are in Liberty Township. In 2 weeks, we'll be having that same Tax Incentive Review Council Turk meeting with the City of Columbus. We have one in a week with the City of Delaware, and we already had the City of Powell back in February. They're one of the earliest ones on the docket. But we actively and proactively work with our fellow government officials to try to make sure that we are able to have a voice and a seat at the table as they talk about development in our community.
Yeah, I think it really highlights that, Delaware County has had a lot of farmland. I mean, we live right around the corner of Old State and Lewis Center Road, so I remember when there was a sheep farm on Old State and Orange, and llamas on Hollenbach Road right there on the map. And both of those parcels of land are now being developed for neighborhoods. And it's a tough situation because, as you said, I don't know what the situation was for those particular landowners, whether, the owners just decided they didn't want to farm anymore, whether it was, passed down to children who decided they didn't want to farm it and then sell it. So those individual families had to make a decision of who to sell it to. And our townships and local government officials are also like, I don't think we can put a Trader Joe's on Hollenbeck Road in the middle of all these neighborhoods, So, and something that's already residential. So there's some thoughtful planning that has to go into both. But, at no point does the school district ever go into those decisions, unfortunately. We can encourage, and I think there's a desire for commercial, both from residents who obviously need services that we want nice restaurants to go to, and
Yes.
a Trader Joe's up here, finally, come on, someone, make this happen. But we can't do that on our own, unfortunately.
That's exactly right.
Good news is it's a lot cheaper to educate students than llamas. The
Yeah.
classes are
So the next question might be then is, well, is this some new strange idea? And the answer is no. We have a long history of meaning what we say and saying what we mean. This graph points that out. So if we walk all the way back to 2008, in 2008, the district passed a 1.80 mil bond issue. And in all cases, the millage that you see is what the voters would have seen on the ballot. We passed a 1.8 mil bond issue, and we only collected 0.82 mils, and that's why you see the line graph jump from 7.9 to 8.72. That is reflective of the increase in the tax rate. So everywhere on that line is a year-by-year view of the tax rate. It then stayed level, and in 2011, when we had a no additional mill bond issue, voters would still have seen a $0.5 mil on that ballot. So when they went on back in, I guess it would have been it's a non-presidential, so it would have been May something or other in 2011, I believe. No, sorry, strike that. It would have been a March if it's a non-presidential. Maybe I have that flip-flopped. It's either May or March. They would have gone and seen a $0.5 mil on the levy language, and we collected nothing additional. It stayed 8.72. And this is data that anyone could pull down from the auditor's website, the Ohio Department of Taxation's website. The rates didn't change. Fast forward 5 years to 2016. That would have been when we passed the bond issue to build Berlin High School. The voters would have seen 1.3 mils on the ballot. We didn't collect. In fact, the rate dropped. I'll say that again. We didn't collect additional. In fact, the rate dropped, as you can see, 0.08 mils. Then in 2017, we would have had a reappraisal. And because of the reappraisal, remember, values would have increased. We were able to drop the bond millage an additional, 1.14 mils down to 7.5. We passed another bond issue in 2020. We've passed a lot of bond issues because of the building and the growth. That would have been on the ballot for 1.7 mils. We collected nothing. We did not collect any additional mills. If you then go to what we've done now 2 years in a row, in 2023, in recognition of the increase in property value in our district in the 23 reappraisals, we dropped the millage on our bond collections a full $1.25 million. We've dropped it an additional $0.25 million for the 24 pay 25 tax year. So since 2011, there have been 3 bond issues. All 3 bond issues were advertised, and we delivered on no additional increase in the tax rate is needed to be able to pay our existing debt service. And that's exactly what we're doing tonight with the resolution that we're passing. We will not need to collect. When someone looks at the ballot, they'll see 1.77 mils when they're in the ballot box on November 4th. We will not be collecting any of that additional 1.77 mils. So our property value is forecasted and projected all the way through at this point in time about 2029. We're always at least 5 years out. So this is one part of that, if you remember, equation It's the total property valuation piece. So remember, we've already talked at length on the first slide about the millage needed. That's what's in parentheses, bond mills divided by 1,000. Now if you look at the next piece of that equation, it's property value. This helps to explain why the rate can stay the same, why it can stay 6 mils and nothing additional needs to increase. And it's just a simple fact of mathematics that if you're multiplying two numbers together, you get what's called a product. If one of the factors increases by 10%, the product will increase by 10%. And that's exactly what is happening with why we don't need to change that rate when new properties, reevaluations are causing the valuation to grow. So this graph kind of puts it all together, and it looks maybe a little busy, but let me show you the three things you have going on. The blue line at the top is our forecasted collections for debt service. What I mean by collections, the amount of revenue that will be raised by 6 mills, we use that money to pay our debt service, what we owe for the financing we did to build our schools. The blue line is existing debt service. Everything prior to the November 4th bond issue that we've ever borrowed or sold to raise proceeds, that is what we're paying each year for that year's mortgage payment, for lack of a better word, the principal and interest. The orange line is the forecasted debt service should the $235 million bond issue pass. If you add the blue line, beg your pardon, the blue bar and the orange bar, notice that you're just getting to where you touch the blue line. That margin, and I've kind of put a little green bracket, best way to how to describe it. The region between collections and existing debt service shows the margin that allows us to do no additional mills. We can take the existing debt service and continue to meet our needs without increasing the rate, the tax rate on our residents. They won't see an increase in the tax rate on their tax bill should this bond issue pass.
No, I think what's important to understand as we look at some of these brackets, there starts to be a little space, right? As we have talked about with the last levy, at that time we were talking about 5 schools. As we said when we announced this one, we are still growing. We are going to need new schools over time. It's not that this high school and this elementary are going to solve everything. This is going to continue to be an issue for us, and we've got to look at ways that we can do it as responsibly as possible and do it in a way that has the least impact on the community. But there is going to be some impact because when you build schools, there just is, right? We have a lot of options at our disposal with some of these types of things, but it's going to depend on when it gets approved, when that plays out, because costs will continue to rise, other things will continue to play into this. So this is not a conversation that if this passes in November, that suddenly we're done talking about this. It's going to be something that this board is going to be dealing with probably long after all of us are off the board. And I just hope that the community sort of understands that that's the situation that we're in.
I think Mr. Meyer, as important as all of this is, Mr. Meyer drove home what the need is. We're growing. We have new students coming to this district, and those students deserve to have the highest quality education as any other student that's been in this district for 5 years or 10 years or 30 years ago. This has been something that, because of the quality of life in this community, the high quality schools, the high quality amenities that we have, running paths, it's a really, really nice place to live. So lots of folks want to be here and to be a part of it. And there's nothing over the last 30 years that has stopped that growth. And what this is showing is that we know that we're going to get more and more students, and they have to have a good place to be educated. I think there was an article that folks were talking about, as a lot of people are buzzing about right now with property taxes across the state of Ohio. And, you know, certainly we're all trying to get property tax relief. Everything we've done as a district has been to try to keep the costs down, this no new additional bond millage issue, all of the things that we do to keep that rate down, cut it when it's not needed. But what drives all of this at the end of the day is the fact that we have a high-quality school district. A lot of people want to raise families here, and so it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're able to continue serving.
And I'm going to ask, we're talking a lot about growth, and we say the toothpaste is out of the tube, and what I mean by that is, so in the 2020 census, 6,500 children 0 to 4. Most of those kids are going to go where? To our schools. 7,000 plus single-family homes already zoned for construction. We get a 0.8 yield from a new single-family home, like Mr. Jenkins talked about. 5,400 plus multifamily units already zoned for construction. So when we talk about the growth continues in the district. And we've had a lot of conversation about us, the district, sitting at the table and talking about the impact, and absolutely has an impact. But like Mr. Jenkins said, it's our responsibility, and we have to educate our students who show up here. So that's the reality for us.
It's a crucial moment. You know, we've pared it back. We've done everything we can possibly do. But as we've seen here this evening, we know that the students are coming and the facilities are needed in order to continue to educate them effectively. And we're doing everything we possibly can. And one of the things that we can clearly state to our community, your tax rates on your individual homeowner tax bills will not increase. Questions? So that leads to then what we're doing with our resolution to set the millage limit. We just went over all of these pieces, and we are able to ask Board of Education this evening, as we've always done, to fully commit that the millage rate can stay at 6 mills, even though the ballot issue will talk about 1.77 mills for this particular bond issue. It will not be collected, and we will be passing a resolution certifying the same.
I just want to note that this, I think we left off the 20, because it says in the second bullet, to where it would be in tax year 2023 at 6.25, we've dropped it an additional.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is now currently, we dropped it again for 24. Good catch, Mr. Lester. It should say at 6 mills. Yeah, we kind of missed and stopped apparently at 2023, and I wrote this up, so it had to be me.
It was a great year.
I could say we.
Happening, yeah. So.
Majestic plural.
Yeah. So the rest of the action items this evening, each year, another one of our strategies to try to enhance our operational revenues and be as efficient as we can with the district. We invest in commercial paper and bankers' acceptances. We have an investment policy that specifies very clearly the very safe but also as aggressive as we can be ways to earn additional interest. One of the ways that's legal by the revised code is to invest in commercial paper, but each year it's incumbent upon me, which I have to take special training for commercial paper. We have to provide a report to our residents and constituents about what our commercial paper holdings were and the earnings that we had. We have the minutes from July 9th. We have the minutes from July 24th, and then as we just spent a few minutes discussing, we have the resolution setting the millage limit at 0 for the bond issue. 6 mills total, no overall increase.
I swore I wouldn't consider commercial paper after the bar exam, but I'll do it for this purpose.
Yeah,
so.
It's not that hard, I promise.
It's given bad memories of law school.
And I have no public participation, so I think we're ready to proceed to the next section with Dr. Fetty.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Dr. Fetty, board policy update.
Good evening, board.
There are 4 policies that the policy committee met to review recently that are presented to you tonight for a first reading. The first 3 policies are almost identical to one another: student safety and supervision. The lame duck legislature at the end of the last calendar year passed a law defining grooming. So we're taking the definition that we had created in our policy out, and it's being replaced by then just the legal definition. And then the 4th policy is a replacement of our policy on personal communication devices. House Bill 96, the state's budget bill, requires school boards to adopt a policy that prohibits the use of personal communication devices during the instructional day. We can go to the next one. Here's the language. To comply with that law, Olentangy has prepared a replacement policy that's before you that complies with the state law by minimizing the allowable circumstances for students to use a PCD, a personal communication device, during the school day. The policy states that students are not permitted to use their cell phone or any other device with two-way communication capabilities during the day without permission. Students can keep their silenced cell phones or other devices in their pocket, in their book bag, their locker, or in a designated space in the classroom. Students may not use their phones, watches, or other devices for calling or texting during the day unless one of the following. A teacher or administrator has authorized the use of the device for instructional purposes, or a student has a specific purpose that's stated in their IEP or Section 504 plan, or the student has provided the school with documentation of medical necessity from their medical provider, or if there is an active emergency underway. Otherwise, students, again, are to not use their phones for calling and texting during the school day in compliance with state law. As required by that law, the school board policy will be enforced within the Student Code of Conduct, and progressive discipline will be used, starting with verbal warnings and reminders. We are committed to starting this year in a way that this new law does not distract from learning any more than cell phones had previously distracted from learning. So we are going to warn students, remind students of the new laws throughout the first weeks of the year before we get into any, hopefully before we get into any serious discipline. Our students with our cell phone rules last year at the high school level specifically were very, I would say, compliant and understood the rules and followed those pretty well. At school events outside the instructional day, including on our school buses, students can use their cell phones unless they're directed not to by the supervising authority. So for years, we've had practice on our school buses that the bus driver decides if students are able to use their cell phones or not. And generally, the default is that they can, unless it becomes a safety hazard, and we don't want to distract from the ability of our drivers to maintain safety on school buses. Every school has staff that answer phones throughout the school day, access messages throughout the school day. Every classroom is equipped with a phone to be reached by the main office. So parents are advised that the best way to get in touch with their child during the day is to call the school office. If you want the message to make it to your child as quickly as possible and don't want to risk your child disrupting learning in their class. And then finally, our new communications tool, Parent Square, will be used to communicate urgent matters like delayed buses, canceled after-school activities, as well as all the other methods that the schools already have used, such as Schoology messages to students about bus changes, over-school announcements at the end of the day about canceled practices or bus changes. All of those are already in place, and we'll continue to use those. So the policy that's presented to you tonight is a first reading. I will be back at the second meeting this month to adopt it, hopefully. Are there any questions about the policy?
So a couple of comments first. I mean, we had a very robust discussion about this at the policy committee to try to think about all of the ways that this could apply. There's some very clear language in the statute. It's not always clear exactly how far it goes to different types of school activities. This is focused on during the instructional day. I do want to highlight that you identified the IEP, the 504 plan, as the policy states. If you have a health concern, that you've got a written statement that's there. And, we know that there's some technology, certainly with cell phones around, whether it's diabetes or other things, that there's some monitoring that can be done there. And that would still be allowed under this.
Absolutely.
For those purposes. And we'll probably see more of that as technology advances, that we want to be very thoughtful for that. There's also, there's always, as we started doing this last year with like putting things in pouches, there was concern about active, threats and what happens, can I contact my child? And that's in here, right? So it's trying to bridge this, what the law is requiring with also some of these practical realities, and find that right line. We know that there's been a lot of discussion about this. We've heard from a lot of community members about it, and I think it's just important to understand that this is ultimately a line that the state is drawing here, and we're trying to implement it as thoughtfully as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. The state law gives the school board the authority to ban phones from campus. We're not doing that. Students are able to have their phone with them in their pocket during the school day. They can come to school with a phone. They can use it afterwards. So this is not in any way an overreach on the part of the board or the district. We're trying to comply with the law.
Parents are still allowed to tell their kids no phones, though, right?
I think so, yeah. But it's not an easy message for parents, I know, to deliver. But, yeah, I mean, obviously that's a family choice. And, there's good and bad that comes with phones. And this is, I think the law is trying to acknowledge that.
Dr. Fetty, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Students tend to be creative and resourceful.
Yes.
So watches, iPads,
So
just specific on phones?
the law defines any device with two-way communication capability as a personal configuration.
So if I have a walkie-talkie on my iWatch, I have to take my watch off?
Yeah, if your watch is an iWatch, you're not allowed to use it for calling and texting during the school day.
Okay.
And as parents, you can limit that, just so everyone
Is that
is
possible?
aware. Yeah, on
not a-
Apple
I'm not a watch
watches.
guy.
You can
It's
wear it,
called
you just
school
can't keep
time,
utilizing it.
and it doesn't allow messages to come in and out. So some of this, again, is parent, family responsibility of trying to teach our students. I know I'm always not always the best either about my use, and I think we had a really good discussion in the policy committee meeting of, the desire to create community and face-to-face communication, and I know that even I've talked to a friend of mine who's a high school teacher in the district, and she said when we were given sort of the okay from our principal to start doing the pouch things, that it made a difference, and it made a really big difference. So that being said, there's practicalities and realities where it's appropriate, and even when teachers will authorize it for instructional purposes, go listen to the symphony on Spotify or something, and that's going to be something that this policy allows for as well.
Dr. Fetty, you brought up a great point with the teacher. My big concern is that there's uniformity of applying this policy.
Yeah.
So we don't hear that there's an anti-technology person at one school and then a person who's like, go ahead and take out your phones without restriction. So how are you going to administer this policy so that it's uniformly applied?
Yeah, that's the exact sentiment that our principals have expressed already, that they want to be consistent with one another as much as possible. However, we also know that in the rumor mill, we're never consistent anywhere, and you can always find an example of a challenge. But our principals are working together to, at each level, to decide how best to approach the policy.
Does the policy allow for just a hypothetical? My son finds out that he has a wrestling match last minute, and he needs to let his family know so that we can show up. He can ask an adult and say, hey, listen, he's at a study hall or a lunch, he can say, can I step away and let my family know? Or a work thing or something, because sometimes there are time-sensitive communications And of course, you don't want them to interrupt instruction, but there is still time where that might be appropriate.
Yeah, I would say that there is probably innumerable situations where a student would have to go to a staff member and say, hey, I need to do this for this reason, and the staff member can make the judgment call that they need to make. Is it instructional? Is it for the safety and well-being of the student? Is now the best time? Are we not disrupting instructional time? And we have a long track record in this district of always doing what is in the best interest of students. It's our mission, and I'm confident that our staff will handle situations like that appropriately, so that the message is, if somebody needs to be contacted, that they'll get contacted. But I do also want to stress that, if your son is finding out about a wrestling match changing, you should be finding out too, if the coach is following our communications protocols and using Parent Square and has built their teams appropriately. So you can get a real-time text message to your phone, which you're allowed to use, assuming your employer allows it, unfettered, right? So, but we're always going to work with the students. And that's one of the things that the policy committee did here too, is, they talked about there might be a need. The law requires us to list all the discipline that could happen, right? And the policy committee was purposeful in saying we also want to make sure that if a kid needs referred to a counselor because they might have an unhealthy relationship with a cell phone or the policy's affecting him negatively, that's a possible outcome as well. So not for the counselor to discipline the student, but for the student to learn how to establish healthy boundaries.
So the goal is not to eliminate the opportunity of parents to communicate. The goal is not to stifle communications, cut them off from the family. The goal is to help kids be able to focus on maximizing.
The stated goal, I believe, that the governor put out was that it's to reduce distractions to instruction.
So to our district's credit, unlike the state, we're not waiting, which is the absolute worst time to implement a policy in school. The middle of the school year, we're going to start this from the beginning, like any great educator would do. You get the rule set at the beginning of the year, not in January, for the love of Pete. So we'll start the school year with kids understanding the rules of the game.
Certainly not right after young Mr. O'Brien was gifted his new watch for Christmas. We would hate to drop that news on him then. So yeah, we felt like the beginning of the year was the best time to start this policy. So I do encourage folks to take a look at the policy, to submit questions, and we'll be back for the adoption later this month.
And Dr. Dabico, I just want to add, so Dr. Blackley and the school leadership team already is working with principals on the consistency across the buildings and having conversations, and we'll continue to have conversations as school gets underway. We are asking parents and students to be patient as this law takes effect here at the beginning of school. And I'm confident that we'll be able to work through that.
And there's going to be multiple levels of communication here as well. After the board adopts, or after tonight, really, we're going to start with the communication to get to parents, staff, parents, and then really, for the parents, you should really try and wait until your curriculum night and your students' class meetings at the high school to learn the full scope of how you think it may impact you at the school level.
And I mean, to be clear, this, just from a pure procedural perspective, this is the first reading. We'll have a second reading at our next meeting. And in the meantime, if people have comments, obviously we're dealing with the law here, so we'll be happy to hear public feedback, but understanding that there are very clear legal restrictions here that we have to abide by.
But it does go into effect beginning of school year before our second reading.
It does. Our practice will be to implement at the beginning of the school year, yes.
Right, yeah. Okay, great. Any other questions? Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Benny. All right, so Mr. Jenkins, we're now moving on to the treasurer consent action items.
As board members this evening, there are 4 items that I will be presenting to you as one single slate of items. They are item A, approval of the fiscal year 2025 commercial paper and bankers acceptance report. Item B, the minutes from the July 9th meeting. Item C, the minutes from the July 24th meeting. And as we discussed this evening, item D, the resolution to set the millage limit at no additional mills. All of these items, again, unless one of you would like to pull it out, discuss it separately and vote on it separately, I am recommended to be approved by one single motion and action.
Would anyone like to point these out for separate consideration? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve them as a single slate of consent action items?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, Mr. Jenkins.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes. All right, Mr. Meyer, the superintendent consent action items.
Thank you, Mr. Lester. Board members, I recommend approval of the following superintendent consent action items A through G. A, specific human resource items administrative. B, specific human resource items certified. C, specific human resource items supplementals. D, specific human resource items classified. E, specific human resource items classified substitutes. F, business management and facility items, which consist of declaring transportation as impractical for students and approving bus routes and stops for the 25-26 school year. And G, approval of a resolution of intent to not provide career technical education in grades 7 and 8. I'm asking you to approve these items by one single action and vote unless you'd like to discuss any of these items separately.
Would anyone like to discuss any of these separately? All right, hearing none, can I entertain a motion to approve these as a single slate of consent action items?
So moved.
A second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, Mr. Jenkins.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
I will now entertain a motion to convene into executive session as permitted by Ohio Revised Code, Section 121-22G1, to discuss the employment or compensation of a public employee. I'll note that we will only be returning to adjourn after this, not to take any substantive action. And can I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We are going to do executive session. All right, are we good? All right, it is 8:41 PM. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right, Dr. Davrico and then Dr. Wallach. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Dr. Davrico.
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber.
Yes.
Dr. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Mr. Lester, yes, we are adjourned.